Hey, this is John Lee Dumas, the founder and host of Entrepreneurs on Fire. And if you're wanting to learn how to embrace change and navigate through disruption as a leader, then listen to the Leadership is Changing podcast with my good friend, Denis. He's prepared to ignite.
Welcome to Leadership is Changing. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change. This is taking your leadership to another level by finding the balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing with your host, Denis Giannoutsas.
Hey, welcome to the show, Leadership is Changing. What we as leaders know to be true is that change is constant. Leaders everywhere confront similar obstacles because people are people, but everywhere you go, leaders are overwhelmed, disrupted, and under pressure. They run from email to email, meeting to meeting. Many leaders are not changing quick enough, which means they run the risk of becoming irrelevant and being left behind. Perhaps the show is taking our listeners' leadership to another level by finding their balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. I believe we don't have enough effective leaders in the world today, and if we can get the leaders to step up and lead change, then they can inspire real change. Hey listeners, it's now time to adapt in our fast-moving world. Welcome to the Ask Denis freestyle episode. Great to have you here with us this week. This is a freestyle episode that happens once a week, and it's where I'm asked a question by our listeners or share my thoughts, my insights, and experiences from working with many leaders around the globe. It's great to have you here with us. Hey, I want you to take a lot of notes through as we go throughout today's session, just like we have in the other episodes. I'm going to encourage you to go back and listen to some of the other Ask Denis freestyle episodes, some great topics that we've actually covered over the last sort of 20 months. And so you can pick out some really good learnings and insights and then apply it to your workplace, to your team, to yourself, whatever it is. But go ahead and apply one or two or three different things to help you move on, to help increase your voice and help you become very influential as a leader. All right, let's get into today's session. We're going to be talking about an interesting topic here, which is leaders who don't make decisions. There's nothing worse than a leader who can't make a decision. And so there are some people out there today, some leaders, even though we are coming up to the end of the second month, some people haven't even set their goals for this year. Some of them won't even go ahead and make any decisions. They have this fear of stepping forward. They talk a lot, they say a lot, but they don't actually go ahead and do things. In fact, I find it at times they are sitting on the fence. When I'm working with a lot of my coaching clients in some areas or topics that we may be discussing, I ask them to let me know where they are on the range. 1 being low and 10 being high for them. And I want them to select a number out of 10 to sort of indicate where they might be right now. Then I say to them, by the way, please don't choose 5 because 5 is being a fence sitter. People don't want people to be sitting on the fence. People want leaders to be making decisions. And sometimes it's hard being a leader. That responsibility, being held accountable, really because the buck stops with you. And if you're making some decisions, then they may not be the right decision. You know what? You won't know if they're the right or wrong decision until you make a decision. Now, there's always this thing out there called fear. And fear, to me, if I take the FEAR, stands for false evidence appearing real. Now, for some of you, you may have heard of that before, but for some of you, it might be the first time. False evidence appearing real. For a lot of times, that fear, that thing that is stopping us, tends to be something that's going on in our minds, and we think about it so much, and we make it so real that we think it is real. And so sometimes we have to sort of get that fear out of the way. There's this other thing that we talk about in the industry as well, that if a leader doesn't make a decision, sometimes it's a kiss of death. Can be just a kiss of death for an organization, for a team, for an individual. What do we mean by that? Well, let's take Kodak as a good example. The board of directors many years ago actually had a digital solution sitting in front of them as a board of directors. Now, strategically, the board decided to not go ahead with that. So they did make a decision. And so for that decision to not go ahead, that was really a bit of a kiss of death for them as well. But there are some leaders who don't make decisions at all or tell people what their opinions are or their thoughts. That's making a decision too, right? Letting people know. And when you keep people in the dark, when people don't know what's going on, they start to lose confidence in that leader. Some leaders aren't making those decisions because they don't have enough information. So the scene is being weak. The scene is being leaders who can't make a decision and don't know where they're going. Sometimes I think leaders might actually have too much time on their hands. Now, for a lot of leaders here who are listening to this, I know that you don't have a lot of time on your hands. You're probably listening to this as you're driving or as you're walking, running, doing some activities, exercise, or maybe even sitting down enjoying a nice coffee or a cup of tea. The thing here is some leaders have too much time in their hands. They waffle, they think about things for too long, and sometimes it's too late. We can make decisions subconsciously as well. So there'll be things that we do every day that aren't big decisions, but we're making decisions all the time. This morning, when you got dressed, and let's say you put some trousers on or some pants or some jeans, I don't know what you call it in your country, but let's say you did put a pair on this morning. What went first, your left leg or your right leg in first? Interesting question. Now, I bet you some of you right now are thinking it through in your mind to see if you can trace back and actually understand what you did. Now, most people don't remember. They have to really think about it. I wonder what you're going to be like tomorrow morning when you put on your trousers, your pants or your jeans, and you're putting those on. You're probably going to stop and go, it's the right leg, and then have a little bit of a smile, right? Could be the left leg. But the thing here is we do things subconsciously, and sometimes we don't actually do things what we call deliberate. Now, if you make some decisions deliberately, that's a good thing, and that's what we wanting to be doing. We want to make sure that we're not on autopilot all the time, but we're making decisions that are deliberate. Now, not all your decisions are going to be favorable, but at least if you make one, then you can always tweak it from there. So the important thing is that you get started. The important thing is that you make a decision and you move on. Now, if you have to tweak, that's fine. I'm always really quite interested to see whereby Formula One racing, the weather conditions, do we change the tyres now or do we change the tyres later? Where we are in the actual track and the way of rankings. When do we change or put petrol in or gasoline in? And when do we do it later? That decision can make or break the actual success or the result of the race. But I come across a whole lot of leaders that seem to be holding back. What's holding you back? Now, for some leaders, they're trying to play it what I call safe. And I got to tell you this, your organization, your team, your business doesn't want you to play safe. They want you to go out there and do what you need to do and make decisions. We're not by talking about going out there doing some crazy decisions because you're going to have to get some information to make an informed decision. So they want you to go ahead and make a decision. They'll know that also sometimes these decisions may not be right. Sometimes they may not even agree with your decision, but at least you made one. Now, there could be something that's holding you right back right now. There might be something you're wanting to do right now. For some of you, you're probably doing some massive hours, 80-hour weeks, and now your boss wants you to step up into their role, but you're afraid. How can I do the bigger role when I can't even do the role I'm doing at 80 hours a week today? Now, the thing here is, it could be a new role that you want to go and do within the organization. It could be a brand new company, industry that you want to get into. It could be a totally different kind of role that you want to do going forward, different to whatever you've done in the past. There might be even some of you right now who are wanting to start a podcast, but not sure, haven't made a decision. I know that there are some people today who have actually got material, they've done interviews, but they haven't even launched. What's going on with their mindset? What's holding them back? They've actually made a decision to not start. How about if they made a decision to start? What happened? Oh, imagine this. What happens if it does work? Oh, they might be quite pleased. For some people, they're not sure. For some of you, you might want to actually dismiss someone or have a difficult conversation. You're putting it off. You're not making that decision. You may want to hire someone. You may want to promote someone. There are all sorts of decisions that we need to make. But there is nothing worse than a leader who doesn't make a decision. Now, put yourself into a position so you can make a decision. Gather the relevant information, knowledge, whatever you need to make that decision. Get input, feedback from others to help you make that decision. Make a list of pros and cons so you understand what is the good things, the bad things, the we're not sure about things kind of scenario, so then you can make that decision. All I know, team, is this. Every time I've made a decision that's out of my comfort zone, does it hurt? Am I scared? Yeah. But you know what? That's when I've grown the most. You know what? When you're out of your comfort zone, this is when magic happens. If there's something you're holding on to right now, something you're not making a decision about, I'm going to encourage you now to go ahead, have courage, be bold, think about what you want. See, that's something that actually a lot of leaders don't do. They don't take time out to think about what they want to do. Think about what you're wanting to do, make the decision, and step forward. And if you can step forward, remember this, you can always tweak things as you go along. Hey listeners, what we as leaders know to be true is that change is constant. Change is incredibly scary, especially with the unknown and unfamiliar territory. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing. Look out for the episodes as they're being released, download them, have a listen, put a review and a rating. Feel free to share them with your friends, your family, and your network. Hey, if there's any feedback you'd like to give me about the show, or if there's a question you have for the Ask Denis Freestyle episode, then send me an email, dennis@leadingchangepartners.com. Hey, listeners, it's always a pleasure being with you. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Leadership is Changing with your host, Denis Giannoutsas. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change, inspiring executives and leaders to adapt and lead a bigger game in a fast-moving world.